I've been banging on about this since the local elections that reform never ran on local issues. It was always national stuff. And as a result, we have seen that play out in the recent months, that they've had no policy to speak of whatsoever. It's been vague to the point of complete see-throughness. And we always keep on hearing the policy's coming, the policy's coming. Don't worry, it's coming. It was coming in June, it was coming in August, it was now coming in September. Whether it will actually arrive in September, who knows? However, we are, of course, going to Warwickshire because, believe it or not, George Finch held a press conference on Friday where he announced what their policy plan would be. Now, I am very, very surprised because so far, no other Reform Council has put forward what their policy intends to be, because they're waiting for that unit down in London. They give them that policy plan. Now, maybe this is it. Maybe this is it. Maybe you are now going to see all these policies that you see here rolled out. Although, as you'll see here in a moment, they are very vague and there's no meat on the policy bone at all also to speak of. So it's very weird that you would come out and announce these policies. So it makes me also wonder whether you are going to see, maybe in a couple of months, another press conference where they come out with some more policy plans, maybe completely different from the 4 policies they'd already announced. Maybe they've got out and been a little bit too eager about what these policies are. Who knows? But it's very strange that no other Reform Council has also done something very similar. So we'll see what happens. But nevertheless, this is an interesting development. As I said, something to keep an eye on, whether they, call out or come out and speak about what it is they intend to do policy-wise. So we're going to have a look today over at Warwickshire and see, of course, what George Finch, the UK's youngest council leader in history, has to say about this. Anyway, so before we do get on into this, please do, of course, remember to click the like, share, and the subscribe button. Down below, of course, there are links to my Patreon page, the Buy Me a Coffee link, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there are, again, links down below, etc., all that good stuff. So, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. Let's now crack on into this. So, Warwickshire County Council Reform leader now announces a 4-pronged policy plan. Well, another question that should be put forward: why weren't you running on these policies to begin with during the local election? Anyway, leader of the council, George Finch, and his deputy councillor, Stephen Shaw, who also looks after finance and property, held a press conference at Shire Hall on Friday afternoon, the 29th of August. They released plans for a new 4 programs related now to value for money, crime awareness and prevention, transport, special needs, and disabilities, or SEND, as it's called. So, what are these things they announced? What are the crime awareness and prevention program? And considering, bear in mind, I still can't believe give any updates on this at the moment, because again, it's still ongoing. I'm going to have to actually see if there's been any updates or anything like that on this front, with George Finch, of course, getting into a bit of hot bother with his own local constabulary over that. Anyway, so Councillor Finch, of course, introduced the crime and safety element with the claim that Warwickshire residents no longer feel safe in their local communities, with now to readdress our top priority. So again, the claim that Warwickshire residents no longer feel safe in their local communities. Again, vague at best, usual popularist language that you've seen rolling back decades. The crime awareness and, of course, prevention program will focus on assaults, burglaries, antisocial behaviour, and vandalism. I wonder how much vandalism there will be with all those St. George's crosses being painted that they might like to be reporting. But he continued with a particular focus on high crime areas like Nuneaton and Bedworth. The programme will combine public outreach, targeted infrastructure upgrades, and the creation of a new community safety unit to try and coordinate efforts across the council and third sector partners. Councillor Finch, who is now committed to a quarterly crime and safety surgeries in each district and borough, led by cabinet portfolio officers and council officers. They should take in there everything that's been going on recently. Yeah, this vandal that painted this flag on this wall. What are you going to do about that? That'll be a very interesting conversation. That'll be a very interesting conversation. Please do record that, and if you do let me know and send it to me, because I'd be very interested in what they have to say about that. So, he said the purpose of all these surgeries is to release, rebuild trust and transparency, and to ensure that we as a council try and do better understanding the concerns of the community. Street lighting policy has also now been developed now with the potential now for additional lighting in areas with increased community safety. Reform also plans to allocate £3,000 to all 57 councillors. That's £1,771,000 in total for the use and their discretion on community safety projects. Gee, I wonder where all that money is going to get spent. That'll be interesting to keep track of. That's for sure. Plus another £250 per councillor to run workshops on crime prevention and awareness and safety. This launch marks the beginning of a detailed planning phase, Finch said. The next steps will try to encourage partners to secure the necessary funding from Warwickshire County Council's budget and other sources and consideration on how to build on existing plans. The report, again, launching the plan, is due to be considered at a meeting of all councillors on Tuesday, September 23rd. So at least we know when the next council meeting is going to be. So that, to me, is incredibly unfocused. That comes across to me as incredibly unfocused. There doesn't seem to be really much of a strategic plan in place. Like, okay, you're going to be targeting these things, working with partners, okay, but that's what already happens. So why is this any different to what the council already does? Anyway, preventing and fixing potholes. So Finch, of course, then announced a consideration of proposals to bring and repair the Warwickshire's potholes in-house alongside a prevention program set out to launch in 2026, promoting the expectation now of reducing now in the highways contracted price in reduction in the cost of each pothole filled. So you're going to bring in pothole filling in-house, meaning I'm guessing at some point Warwickshire outsourced this to an outside external company. Now you're going to bring it back in-house, so it's going to be the council's prerogative to now do. That is going to reduce in the cost of each filling pothole. How is it going to, again, okay? Again, a bit more detail missing here, very, very much so. We keep on hearing what is now frustrating residents is not only the dangerous potholes, but of course the poor condition of the roads. Many authorities don't even classify as potholes, he said. His availability, of course, led to expensive reactive repairs. He said that 13% of the country's roads, the county's roads, were now considered to be in poor condition, better than, of course, many other Shire counties, and argued we know we can do much better through a new strategy and now a focus on prevention rather than a cure. So you're taking a preventative approach, which will be what exactly? Anyway, this approach will, of course, try and be the best value for money we can get from the government funding and try to reduce strain on local council tax. I think this is a lot to do with the fact that the government has announced that they are going to give money to this. So this isn't a new priority. It's the fact that they know this government money is available and they've gone, here's a thing to get that money. And then, of course, ipso facto, they then look good for doing something when we saw this, of course, happening down in Kent not that too long ago, where they took credit for this whole money to fix potholes. But again, it wasn't. It was coming from the central government. So no doubt they are trying to pull that same game as well here. So on Send, Councillor Finch commented now on working now to try and reduce delays to children receiving education, health and care plans, and threw down the gauntlets to the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, to provide a solution to the national funding crisis, insisting that councils up and down the land will be banging at the door asking for more money because we will not be in a position now to sustain ourselves financially. Which, again, is true. There does need to be a plan, at least come this, from the government nationally. At least he's now admitting to that. That's changed his tune from what he used to say previously, but there you go. He also now called on his political rivals to get behind Warwickshire's push to make a difference. He said, when we go full council, we will have to make sure that other parties agree to our ways and that we see that we can do to support families, of course, with SEND needs, said Councillor Finch. This is one of the biggest issues, and I would love to try and tackle and call for other groups to work with and support these children. But again, doing what exactly? You're just asking for more money. You aren't really doing anything on a SEND front except we need more money, please. But there you go. We cannot do this alone. The county council cannot do it alone. I have to tell this Labour government what we are all about and trying to put these people first. So are you going to do anything different? Are you going to do any policy that might help people on this? Again, vague policy statements, very vague policy statements, no meat on these policy bones whatsoever. And then, of course, the value for money program. This is, of course, the Doge stuff coming in. On the financial side, Councillor Shaw will be bringing in a new value for money program through Thursday's meeting of the cabinet, aiming now to create cost savings and promotion of non-traditional revenue streams and efficiencies to get more bang for the public's buck. How they intend to do that will be very interesting. He said that public money hasn't been spent the right way. So what has it been spent on? What is this wrong way? What is the right way? For too long, like many councils, they've taken on large debts and contractors, charging, of course, what they like. That's just unfortunately how the nature of contractors works. He praised the council's finance team for their productive approach now to plans and now have tougher stipulations in contracts, addressing now spending on things such as road maintenance, the cost of childcare in care homes and home to school transport, while trying to utilize the benefits of artificial intelligence. This is Doge through and through. This is where the Doge stuff is going to get inserted. When Doge finally comes to Warwickshire, or Doggle as it's called, this is where it's going to come. This is where, again, if you are a councillor or Warwickshire, this is where you've got to watch out for. He advocated, of course, again, for pursuing ideas such as moving towards more in-house solutions, like Warwickshire County Council's ongoing programme of building its own children's homes and potentially children travelling in groups to school, where there needs to be cutting down on the taxi. And you mean travelling in groups, like, I don't know, getting on a bus? Anyway, that's what used to happen a lot. There used to be a lot of specifically school buses on this stuff, but again, because of austerity, those things had to be cut away. So they're going back to things that they used to do, but can they get the money for it? Is that's always the big question. Trying to cut down on taxi spending, plus looking now at children being in schools close to their home addresses. I'm going now to be completely honest with this. There will be no overnight success, admitted Councillor Shaw. So already building in, well, if I fail, you see, I told you it wouldn't happen straight away. It will take a lot of time and hard work, it continued, and of course will compete now evolving to make sure the savings create new revenue for the council through high quality services and more efficient prices. Again, big promise on that one. We are now projected to save at least 20 million in the first year and up to 50 million dependent on how policies now put in place. Wow, that's a significant saving, that. Bear in mind, we've just seen at Durham, they've just closed, again, we'll probably end up covering the story probably next time, they closed these adult learning centres without any consultation, but that was part of their money-saving program. So you've got to be really careful about when they say, oh yeah, we're saving money, but where's that money come from? What have they cut? What have they, quietly, gotten rid of to save that money? So, responding then after the conference, Councillor George Finch, I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure, but there you go. The Lib Dem told the local democracy reporting service that he had expected at least more detail on the very general direction of the council and called reform's priorities very selective. It was not very comprehensive in any way. It left far more questions than answers, and there were questions raised all about how the finances and how the serious issue now to deal with that on that front. I was expecting, of course, to see an overall strategy to deal with this year. We are looking, if we are, of course, looking to make savings, what are these areas that they will be made in? And that is the question you should be keeping asking. Because if you've seen what's gone on in Durham, I have a sneaking suspicion that's what they will probably be doing everywhere else as well. But anyway, he continues. What, of course, we got today were, of course, a number of areas where we will see additional spending. So I do imagine that putting even more pressure on the budget with no clarity on where the additional money will come from. Again, what a surprise. Oh, yes, we're going to do this. But where's all that money then going to come from? But also at the same time, you're trying to make savings. Sooner or later, you cannot spend money, but also then say we're going to save it while cutting it elsewhere. Going to be a split form somewhere else here. And it's either going to be one or the other. And if they go the spending route, that's going to put pressures on the finances. If they go, again, the saving route, what's going to end up being cut? So, he also argued that there have been, of course, far too many throwaway and rather glib lines about the government stepping in, of course, with more cash. We have to recognize that the government has enormous financial pressures at account of the culture. The likelihood of them giving additional largesse to local authorities is, I might think, very unlikely. Councillor Colchers did acknowledge at least public concerns on crime and safety and said it was, of course, helpful that partnerships working was, of course, mentioned, but then added the country has a role to play. The county has a role to play, but that wouldn't be, of course, my highest priority in terms of spending more, particularly now given grants to individual councils to hold meetings. That doesn't seem to me the best use of money. Well, it does, because it now gives those councillors, shall we say, a stage. They get to be seen. Looks like they're doing something. That's to me what that says. So will we now get maybe a couple of months later, completely new policies put out? I don't know. But to me, that's very, very, oh yeah, here's this big chunk of meat on the bone. Meanwhile, there's nothing there. There's just the bone. But you're being told there's all this meat. Look at it. It's delicious, isn't it? Look at this big hunking pile of meat. Meanwhile, it's just a bone. No meat on it whatsoever. That's to me well that comes across. I'd agree with that, councillor. More questions than answers, especially when it comes to policy, where Reform have constantly said, "Oh yes, we're gonna cut, we're gonna get savings, we're gonna do this, and then also we're gonna spend all this money on this, this, and this." kind of weird on that front. But anyway, let me know what you think about all of this. And of course, as always, thank you very much. And of course, we'll see you all next time.